dude, I stay awake for 5 or 6 days and I still show up every day.
So we've gotten a few people that were interested in learning more about your sleep saga. Do you want to jump into that a little bit?
As far as about
the lack of sleep in your life.
Well, let's start. The longest I've ever actually been awake with no sleep is 14 days. And it's interesting.
Wow.
It gets the world gets really weird.
Yeah.
So I've actually been diagnosed with narcolepsy. Not like just falling asleep narcolepsy, but the fact that, and they think it's an autoimmune disorder where you have these hormones that are in your spinal fluid that basically your body goes after. So my body doesn't know when it should be asleep or awake. So when, like, I may be going through the day, and this is hard to know because it's like, okay, well, is it the narcolepsy, why I want to lay down on the floor and crawl into a ball, or is it that I'm actually that tired? And then when you go to bed, your body's like, hey, let's go do some shit.
Yeah.
And you're like, I just want to sleep, man, and I can't. And then it ranges from that to full-on insomnia. I mean, I used to train regularly on a couple days with no sleep. Like, that was normal for me. Actually, it was when Bigger, Faster, Stronger came out, I went down to the premiere down in Hollywood, and I have a friend who's kind of into making movies. And I go, well, dude, you want to go with me? I go, I don't know anybody else that wants to go. And he's like, yeah, cool, but I don't have much money. I go, we'll fly down, hang out for a couple days. We don't need a hotel room. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, dude, we'll just stay awake for a couple days. Like, what's the big deal? It's like, it's LA.
Shit. Like,
we should be able to find shit to do. I think we ended up stopping. He's like, dude, I gotta sleep. We went to Denny's and I went and ate, and he slept in the car. I'm like, dude, it's 2 days. How hard is it to stay awake for a couple days? So basically, as I got bigger and I was pushing my body harder and harder, the sleep thing just kept getting worse and worse. And I still have it to this day. It actually started, I know it started when I was in about 5th grade. Like, I have not been awake in a class from 5th grade through college. Like, you sit me down and I'll fall asleep. But even then, when I fall asleep, I wake up every 4 or 5 minutes.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, how do you even start to attack that problem, right? Like, that situation. Like, I imagine you've tried everything.
I have a super, super, super high tolerance to medications. So we found Seroquel for a while, which is heavy duty, like dementia type shit. And it would kind of make me sleep, but it wasn't a quality sleep. And I'd wake up and I'd be kind of groggy throughout the day. But when I was lifting, I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, if it slows me down for a couple hours, I'll take it. I don't care. I'll take what I can get. No other sleep medications. Like, I had it was funny, Donnie's like, take Ambien. I take half and it knocks me out. I'm like, Donnie, I've taken like 5 and watched TV all night. And I actually took like 14 grams of GHB one time and watched TV all night. And like, I think 7 will kill you.
I remember telling him one time, because it's, I had Aichs for a while and I was prescribed Lunesta. I'm like, you ever try the Lunesta? And he just laughed. It's like, no. It didn't do shit for me either. So, yeah. Did you say Pez?
Yeah. So, I mean, it just blows my mind, right? Like, if I don't sleep for like a night, I feel like shit. Like, what would happen to you after, you said 14 days?
Oh, by that point, you're kind of going nuts.
Yeah.
I worked in a warehouse at the time, and I was in charge of I was in charge of like the rotation of beer and I'd receive it and stuff.
Now, was it like nights or anything?
No,
was
it was days.
Just days.
But so I had to count all the pallets and count the beer and stuff, and it's pretty simple. It's like, dude, that's a 7 tie, it's 5 high, it's 35. Like, it's pretty simple math. And you get to where you can't do simple math, and then I would get pissed off at myself because I'm like, what am I, a fucking moron? Like, why can't I figure this out? And then my vision would get blurry. Like, I couldn't. I mean, I could make things out, but like everything would be seriously blurry. And your head, everything slows down. Like, all your thought patterns slow way down, and you're like a zombie. But it's like, what are you gonna do? I gotta go to work. Like, I mean, I never called in sick. Like, I get pissed off when a guy be like, "Oh, I partied last night, so I called in." I'm like, you pussy. Like, dude, I stay awake for 5 or 6 days and I still show up every day. I still go to the gym every day.
Throughout this process, I'm sure you've had a ton of people ask you about sleep that don't have narcolepsy. So I think kind of where we're going here is, what have you seen help other people that just can't sleep because of stress or whatever issues are going on? Just the normal sleep issues that people have.
I think. Well, first of all, I think we kind of talked about this yesterday. The one interesting thing is that me going through dealing what I deal with allowed me to have a whole lot of insight to other people.
Right.
So even at my team, when I was competing heavy, would range from 4 to 5 people. We could, the owner of the gym we trained at, he pulled me to the side one time and he goes, "Chad, I don't think your team's ever going to really get that big." I'm like, "Well, why?" He's like, "You guys are pretty intense." He's like, "I think you scare most of the people off." So like it would only grow so big, but there was a lot of times that I would really watch, and we were talking about watching when your clients or team and stuff come in and just paying attention to how they move and talk and all that stuff. And so I was always asking them, what's your appetite like? How are you sleeping? And I found out that when you start overtraining your central nervous system bad enough, it seriously affects your sleep, and it affects it pretty quickly. And if you catch it early and get on a deload or something, or up your recovery, like you can stop it like that. So what I found out is my guys, they'd be like, "Oh man, I was a little restless last night. Like I just couldn't seem to get to sleep." And I'm like, "Well, wait a minute, that's my normal sleep." And I found out that if I let them go, if I kept pushing them, it would get worse and worse and worse to almost insomnia. And so then I got to where it's like, if they said restless one night, I'm like, dude, if they tell me that three days in a row, you're done. And I would deload them for a week. By the end of that week, almost always they're like, "Yeah, man, I'm sleeping great again." And I'd be like, "Okay, let's go." So like a lot of times I found out overtraining will seriously screw up your sleep. And then that's a snowball effect. Now you're not sleeping, so your recovery is even worse. And then a meathead or a really aggressive person like myself, you're like, screw it. You just keep going, and you eventually get used to having screwed up sleep. Like it's normal for you, which is kind of where I got to, because I was still pushing so hard. I mean, even though I was doing less than most of the other lifters I was competing with, I was still overtraining. But I kind of got into that phase where I was living like that was normal to me. So now I'm off subject here, I think. So like, I mean, but if it's, and it may not be your overtraining, maybe it's stress from your life, maybe it's, any number of things. Sleeping could be caused by any number of things. I mean, there's a lot of normal stuff that, like the blue blocker glasses, like getting off the computer, shutting the lights off earlier at night. I mean, all that stuff helps to a certain extent. I think it's like training, though. It's like a training program. Like there's a shit ton of things that can work. It's a matter of going through them and finding which ones actually work for you. I mean, I know people that take melatonin and it knocks them out. Like I actually spent the time to swallow half a bottle one time and it didn't do anything for me.
I think it's easier because I track the shit out of my sleep for a lot of different reasons, but I think it's easier now because there's a lot of variables at play. But to me, the amount of money somebody's going to spend, on melatonin, different sleep things, or it's the stupid blue blockers or whatever that's going to be. If you look over a period of a year, to me, it would just make more sense to buy an O-ring or an Apple Watch, start tracking the sleep, and then start looking at when the quality of sleep was better. What time did you go to bed? What time did you wake up? And you can put in there, I use the Apple Watch mainly, but you can put in there, if you took Tylenol PM, if you did this, if you did it, whatever it was, and you can see what it is. And after just tracking it, you don't need to wear the watch all damn day, but when you sleep, you just track it over 3 months. You're like, oh, now wait a minute. If I actually go to bed at 9:30 instead of the 10:30, there's a big difference on what happens here. And so to me, there's almost no reason anymore for somebody to be asking those questions because there's a lot of different things that could impact it. But you have to track it and can't just say, well, I think I fell asleep at 11. But you don't know.
You have no fucking idea.
I think sleep's a funny thing because especially with like some of my girlfriends and stuff over the years, when you're actually sleeping in bed with somebody and you don't sleep, it's funny the things they'll say. They'll be like, well, you slept last night. And I'm like, all right, I was up at this time. And they're like, I didn't sleep very good. And I go, well, you talk in your sleep and you snore. So I pretty much know you were asleep from here to here. Like people honestly don't have any idea.
Well, no, they don't know the sleep disruption either. So
yeah.
They don't know
so a lot of times, like, and I have the ring.
Fit your fat hand.
I got the biggest one, and I have to wear it on like this finger.
Yeah. It only goes up to 13.
Yeah.
That's why I asked. My hands swell. I can't get it off.
Yeah. But like I think a lot of people have no idea, and like you said, they're like, "Well, I got 8 hours of sleep." It's like, no, you were in bed 8 hours, but how long did it take you to actually fall asleep? And then, like you said, it's interesting to track too, like the times that you sleep good. Like you can change your sleep schedule. There's nothing that says you can't. I mean, depending on your job and stuff, or even I'm not opposed to naps. Like if you can, if you have something tracking it, and you're like, hey, I only got 6 hours of sleep last night. Yeah. Like I need to try to fit in a nap today if I can.
Well, see, to me, when I hear the 6 hours of sleep, I'm, well, what does that mean? Like 6 hours of the quality sleep, or 6 hours of restless sleep? 6 hours of what? You know, because I can look now and say, oh, last night I got 8.5 hours, but my restful sleep was 4.5. Yeah. So that doesn't mean, yeah, that's good. Yeah. It's like my normal restful sleep's 5. So what did I fuck up?
That goes back to defining, what do you define sleep as? When I say
definitely.
sleep, in my brain, when I'm saying sleep, I'm saying quality sleep.
Yes.
But it's not. I need to define that. That's actually.
Yeah. See, I look at it 2 different ways. I got time off my feet, and I got sleep.
Yes.
To me, they both matter for my recovery with what this stupid shit that I do. So time off my feet can just be laying in bed watching TV as well, but it's not sleep.
No.
But it's time off my feet. So I mean, there's a lot of. As I'm saying, there's a lot of variables.
And that goes back to whole. Are you overtrained or are you under recovered?
Yeah.
Like those are 2 different things.
And like I said, I can look at my steps too. It's like, okay, steps are down, sleep suck. There's a correlation there. So with those people that are asking, that would be what I throw back is what metrics are you using, and could they be more quality metrics? And then if it's, well, I can't afford an Apple Watch, I get that. How much money are you spending on this other shit that didn't work last year?
Right.
Because usually it's more than people think it is. Because you want to
It's
sleep,
a
you
lot
want to
more.
sleep.
It's a lot more,
How many pillows did you go through?
Yeah.
You know, all these different. You still may have to change that too. You know?
And like you said, with the technology now, this is one area where the technology is really good. It's so hard to know, was my sleep good or bad? Like when I first got my Ring, funny enough, I went back and looked at all my actual sleep studies because I'm like, I want to see how accurate this thing is. So I went back and looked at all my sleep studies, and I was actually surprised how close it was to my actual sleep studies. But then, like when I first got it, it was like, dude, this is depressing, man. And I was sending some of my things to other guys I know that have sleep problems, and they're like, thanks. I thought my sleep was bad.
See, I keep an open mind with this stuff because, to me, just the way my brain works, there's no way that this watch on my wrist is actually as good as a sleep study or any other stuff. But they're metrics. Yeah. And every morning I got to answer, did you rest? Was it good, medium, or bad? You know, so there's that. You know, so I don't really say I trust the technology.
Yeah, well, it's not perfect, but at least it gives you a lot more information than you have.
Well, it's way better than guessing.
Yeah.
Right. So I can remember when I was in junior high and I used to keep a training log. You know, this powerlifting. The back sheet of my training log, the first thing on there was how many hours of sleep, and I'd write that. You know, when you woke up, how did you feel? Scale of 1 to 5. I had like 20 different variables. But even back then, I mean, I'm a fucking idiot, 13-year-old. I'm tracking my sleep to be able to know how it's impacting, you know, the training, because the training sucked. But that can mind fuck you though too, because you wake up and you're like, oh shit, the sleep was a 3, my training's gonna suck. I used to track biorhythms too, which was fucking crazy, because then it's like, oh shit, this is supposed to be a bad day. I'm like,
you're feeding that in your brain all day.
Yeah.
It's like with, I've actually had athletes that have had like the Oura Ring, and they do all the HRV and stuff, and they would just be like, yeah, it's a red day. I'm just not gonna, I think we should just pack it up. It's like, you have no fucking idea.
Yeah, see, that's
you woke up and you took a shit.
Yeah, that's
like,
the problem.
What do you? Yeah.
That's where you got to not.
And like mine, because I would get up and look at it every morning, and it was like, hey, my usual 3 hours. And of that, I got 1 minute of deep sleep. Great.
PR.
But it was like, I think I hit 15 minutes one morning. I'm like, holy shit, dude, 15 minutes of deep sleep. But yeah, I would just kind of look at it and go, okay, well, it was just information to me. I really had no feeling about it at that point.
Yeah. Years back, when Buddy Morris was with the Browns, they had no Mega Wave. I mean, when they were basically, I don't know if it first came out, when it was first starting to be popular, so these things were super expensive. And so Louie and I went there, or I should say I went with Louie because it was a consulting thing. And Buddy wanted to test us, and we were going to train. We were up there. And our conversation on the way up there was like, Lou's like, I don't feel fine. I'm going to, be moderate. And I'm like, I feel okay. I feel between moderate and heavy, so I'm going to kind of go in the middle, but it's not going to be this crazy thing. And it was, it was max effort, because it was during the week. So it's like, what do you want? So we're trying to plan it out as we're going up there. So we have this conversation before we get there. We lay down on this table and take this omega wave thing. We were laying there for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and there's fucking probes everywhere. They're on my toes, my feet. I mean, they're everywhere, like EKG things, but just everywhere. And then it comes back. We're waiting for the results, and they, and they basically said, Louis, it should be a moderate day for you. Then Dave, it should be, kind of between. And we looked at each other like, the fuck is the point of it? If you just listen to yourself, and that's where I think that state of readiness with the O-ring can be a mind fuck, where it might be good for the coach to see, but not the athlete.
Right.
Because then the coach can know, okay, maybe I should back it down because this says the readiness is a 60.
And just be aware
71.
of it for the session.
And be aware if things look a little whack, then back it down, because it's so hard to be able to tell. Some people perform great when they're up against a wall. So how do you explain that? Some people, if they know, I didn't sleep well, but I got to do this. It's like, what the hell? How many of the best workouts did you ever have? But it was under terrible circumstances.